Looks like, Jack, we have more people rolling in, but I would go ahead and get started and we'll go from here.
All right, very good. All right, let's do that. So, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about our plans to go visit lawmakers and how we would like to conduct those visits, give people a chance to learn some of the things that we've learned over time and how best to convey our message. But we'll start with a little bit of history. Oh, sorry. We'll start with this agenda, which will show us that the first thing I want to talk about is a little bit of the history of the bills. And then we'll talk about where to meet and maybe dress code, if you will, or proper decorum. And then strategies on how folks can tell their stories, because one of the reasons we go is to let lawmakers know that these things they're doing affect real people. And we want those lawmakers to meet those real people. And we want real people to convey the real impact that incarceration is having on you and your family and how a good time bill would benefit your loved one who's serving time. So with that, we'll roll right into the history. First, though, I want to introduce everyone to our board of directors and our executive director, Mariah, who's on the call with me now. If you need to contact or want to contact any of us, here's a list of email addresses that you can use. And this this presentation is being recorded, so you will be able to get a copy of all this after the presentation is over.
Yeah, I always like to tell people it'll be about 24 to 48 hours, but we should have it in Monday morning's newsletter, the recording available on our YouTube page.
All right, thanks.
Question, is the recording an audio recording or do you just get a written transcript?
No, it is this whole visual recording, so you'll be able to watch the video on YouTube.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
and you'll be able to hear the audio track, so careful what you say if you don't want it captured forever in posterity.
Okay.
This is a comparison slide that we put together a while ago, and this talks about the history of the 2021-2022 legislative session. It looks at the three and should I say four bills, if you will, that were introduced, three in the House, one in the Senate, and kind of does a comparison, first of all, as to who signed up to them, and then what their affiliation is, what district they're from, and these are the old districts from last year. I also like to point out, kind of to put it all into context, that over the years, several lawmakers have tried to introduce a bill related to good time. The first one started in 2009. This was George Cushenberry from the UP, and he introduced House Bill 4498 back in 2009. He was the single, sole, and lonely sponsor on that bill. In 2018, Rep. David LeGrand and Martin Howerlich introduced a bill. Again, it was pretty much the exact same language as 4489. It was House Bill 5666 in 2018. That only had two sponsors and it didn't go anywhere either. And then in 2020, we had asked Senator Irwin to introduce our bill, and that was the previous legislative session. It was prior to the 2021-2022 session. He introduced it as Senate Bill 1242. He was the only sponsor. It was at the tail end of the session. So it did not go anywhere either. But in 2021, he did introduce the bill that we crafted with our law firm, and that became Senate Bill 649. Senate Bill 649, along with the other two House bills, were all in play as of these dates, March, April, and then ours came out in September of 2021. And this is the list of those who sponsored. At the end of 2022.
Did he order a fried pickle?
Evan?
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry. Thank you. At the end of 2022, Rep. Amos O'Neill introduced a package of 6568, 6567, 6568. So that was four bills in play. And this was the first time that a good time bill, the identical good time bill, was introduced in both chambers. If you look at this long list and add up all the names, there's 42 lawmakers on this page. Some of them are signing up to the original 4489, and then they also signed up to our bill 65676568 over here. So clearly, this is the list of people we will and are already talking to about reintroducing the bill in the 2023-2024 session. And there's already a lot of activity surrounding that. So I think what I'm trying to show in this slide is the trajectory of this topic, right? Over the years, it was only a person here or a couple of people there. And then in the last session, really things started to break out. And I expect even more activity on this topic this year. I will
I-
pause though from time to time if you guys want to drop in and ask questions. Mariah, do you have something?
Yeah, I do just want to give people clarification because I know there's a lot of rumors and discussions. So every bill that's currently on this page that Jack just mentioned, so the ones that were introduced in 21 and 22, as of December 31st, were no longer eligible to move or have anything happen. And so we are working with a number of lawmakers. We're having conversations and we are working on a reintroduction of the bill that we had introduced last time around. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of how law works in Michigan. So every 2 years after the session ends, they all go dead if they didn't move forward, and you have to reintroduce. So we are talking to a number of these lawmakers and working on figuring out timing and strategy to make sure we're most successful and moving this bill forward with hopefully more than just 42 co-sponsors. We'll have a large number of sponsors. But for people who are hearing, oh, there's bills out there already, it's on the governor's desk, things are happening. Right now, there is nothing in play. There is no bill that has been introduced for this new session. And when that happens, we will be right on top of it and sending out an email to everyone and letting them know that bill has been introduced. So at this point in time, there is a little wait and see kind of game, and that's for strategic purposes based on what the representatives and senators we're working with would like to do so that we can be most successful in making this pass during this legislative session.
Yeah, the big point being that currently there is no activity because the last legislative session ended and all of those bills are no longer active. I know I see this all the time. I see emails coming, JPay questions, voice messages coming into our voice box, and it's the same thing, right? People want to know what the status is. Well, they're thinking of last year and not the fact that we have to start over. But the good news is already there is more activity than I've ever seen on this topic. We have had several lawmakers reach out and say they want to be lead sponsors. So we're working it all out behind the scenes, but let's go to Lansing. Let's let them hear from the voice of the people. And you guys tell your stories when we get there. That's the plan. How are we going to go about doing this? What are some of the expectations and the guidelines? Let's talk about that. The easy part to talk about is where we like to meet. There's a little Big B coffee shop downtown Lansing, the Capitol building, you can see right here in your left, circled in green. But this little Big B is across from the House office building. And sorry, if you guys don't have a question, could I ask you to just mute, please? And if you do have a question, we do want to make this interactive and try and answer your questions. But otherwise, I hear some background noise, and it's kind of confusing whether or not there's a question coming. So. Back to this map, there's a great place to park. There's a parking structure right here. It's not too expensive. If people carpool, that's an even greater way to save money. But the Anderson building and the Big B across the street is all listed here, so you'll know where to meet. We can make.
Do you want to make a point, Jack? There is the other Big B reopened now that is on the south side of that building. And so. Just want to make sure we are on the north side next to the Anderson building entrance on Ottawa Street, because there is another Big B around the corner on Michigan Ave. So just making sure we end up at the right one on Ottawa Street.
Right. And it is right in front of the lobby. So you walk across the street, you'll walk into the lobby of the Anderson building, and you will have to bring a license, a driver's license or some form of identification to clear the front desk. It's not a tough hurdle, but just make sure you have something that you can identify yourself with to give them.
Question, is the address on your display 120 West Ottawa. Is that the coffee shop address or the administrative house building?
I believe
Or I'm sorry,
that,
Anderson building.
yeah, the Anderson building. I believe that is the address of the coffee shop. Mariah can double check that when I'm gone, but I think that's what I put up here so that it was
Okay.
clearly the place to meet. It's not a
Thank
big
you.
place.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yes, that's the Big B address. The Anderson building address right across the street is also on Ottawa is the address, but it's the address for it is technically on Capitol Ave. That's the legal street address would be off Capitol Ave.
All right, let's try and talk a little bit about expectations and just basic good rules for a good meeting and showing up on time. So if you can get there early. So if you're not going to meet us across the street for the initial, let's go in the building together and get signed in. If you could meet at the, if you're going to meet with us with a lawmaker after we have started our day, and I think we're starting at like 9 o'clock in the morning. But if you're coming in for like a 10 o'clock meeting, get yourself signed in, find the lawmaker's office. It's on a big directory there in the lobby. And then try and be at the lawmaker's office 5 minutes early if you can. The dress code, we just want people to dress appropriately, you know, business casual is typical. We will have some t-shirts, I think, available. I'm not sure when and where, but I did pick up a bag of those. We'll see if we can't get people wearing those. That way you'll all know who each other is. Typical meeting etiquette would be if you have a cell phone, please put it on silent so that we can give our full attention to the conversation that we're having with our lawmakers. And I know this is a leftover topic from COVID, but if we see that the lawmakers are wearing masks, they want to wear masks, their staffs are wearing masks, then just bring a mask and have it ready, have it on the ready. But we take our cues from the lawmaker. When you walk into their office, you'll get a sense pretty quickly of what kind of, you know, health code and health rules they're following. And we just want to be respectful of that. We'll have about 3 to 4 people with us in each group, and somebody from the group will be from MJA. We are working on scheduling these meetings in advance. I don't know what the tally is, but we can't give you I don't think we can give you yet the final schedule because there's still some that are being made. It'll be a packed schedule though, I can pretty much tell you.
Yes. I believe we have right now, it looks like maybe 16 for scheduled for Thursday, February 16th. And we have another maybe 10 or 12 for the 15th right now.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of meetings. Tell me if only MJA shows up and we don't have any volunteers, we're not going to be able to cover this. So we do need help and we appreciate you joining us. So it's going to be a divide and conquer kind of approach. And the point of this training that we're talking about is to try and help people focus on how we want the meeting and the presentation from you to go. We would like you to stay on topic, and that's, remember, we're connecting all this to the good time bill, but your story is going to tie into that, and your story of your loved one and how they are managing life right now as they're incarcerated, what their accomplishments look like. This is why we asked for a resume to try and help you think about how you want to tell your loved one's story. And this will just help you stay on topic. We realize there's a lot we could possibly talk about, and we hope we'll get to some of those things, but primarily we want to talk about the good time bill, and we want to talk about your loved one and how your loved one would benefit from that. So let me pause and see if there's any questions from this page.
So we are going to refer to the desired legislation as the good time bill because it doesn't have a number yet. Is that
Correct.
Right.
Yes. And so for reference, we will be referring back to SB 649, which Senator Irwin introduced, and then that HB 6567, is it, Jack?
Yep, 6567, 6568.
Yep, that Representative O'Neill introduced. So they will be the same language that there is no expectation at this point that the language will change in any way. So when people ask, it can be referred, and we will have copies of those bills with us available in the meetings if people would like to see it. But often their legislative directors can pull it up on their laptop right there and read through it. It's pretty short.
I'm going to do a little public service announcement here and just talk a little bit about the postcard that we will have plenty of. And it's a very generic postcard about good time. This is the front page, and the back page gives the 3 bullet points that we would like everybody to remember about our good time bill. The one we're talking about, Senate Bill 649 from last session, had these policy points. The idea is we would like to propose a policy that gives someone 30 days of credit for every 30 days served. So if you think about it, this mathematically works out to a 50%, possibly 50% reduction in someone's sentence or credit against their sentence, and puts them in front of the parole board potentially 50% sooner than their current ERD. This would apply to any crime category, any type of sentence except life. Life is not a numeric sentence, and it makes it very difficult because the lifers have some separate challenges when it comes to how they would even see a parole board if they have life with the possibility of parole. We decided to stay away from the life, and there are other groups working on life sentences, second chance look, the juvenile life without parole. So this would take a numeric sentence and, like I said, potentially cut it down by 50% if the person is demonstrating behaviors that are consistent with rehabilitation. If they are not, and they get a ticket or a major misconduct, then they would not be eligible to receive credit for that month. This is our good time bill. This is what we will reintroduce here. I think April is the time frame, is what we're talking about. And these are some other policy points, but everybody will get one of these cards because we have a lot of them. And if you're not familiar with the policy, hopefully this will help.
Diane, I see your question about the proposed reduction in length of sentence. So right now, Michigan, depending on how people choose to calculate, Michigan is either number 1 or 2 in length of time of sentences. So cutting our sentence in half would actually bring us back to what our average sentence length was in the 1990s. So not crazy. And then it would also put us, when you look at comparison to other states, we still would be right around the middle of the pack. We wouldn't even be towards the bottom in terms of length of stay. Most states have significantly shorter lengths of sentences served on average, and part of that is from they just sentence people to shorter sentences, but they also, most states in the country have some type of credit opportunity, so those combinations allow people to serve much shorter sentences than Michigan has. And then Paul, so in general, like if you don't have a personal impacted individual in your life that you're going to refer to, talking about the general points is completely acceptable. So these policy points, and we'll bring up a couple more of those as we go, but the postcard is a really good one. But we have a couple other one-pagers that you would be able to talk about the general policy points, and also your story. Why do you believe this is a good piece of policy if you don't necessarily have a loved one directly impacted right now? Why do you believe it's a good piece of policy?
Thank you.
Certainly.
Can I add to that real quick, Mariah?
Yeah, Bonnie.
Paul, amazing that you're here on that level. Like the legislators need to hear that the community, that's what this is about, is the community all being a part of this, and that we have community members that don't necessarily have a loved one incarcerated, but they want to see this change. So that's going to be a huge point. Thank you.
That, Bonnie, might even speak louder than other things, right? If you have a loved one, well, it's no wonder you're there in Lansing, right? If you are just Joe Q citizen and you show up in Lansing and say, I also support this and here's why, you know, that's a whole nother angle to this that I think is really could be very powerful. I agree. It's the general public that really needs to start weighing in on this. And that's when we'll find out if the people of the state of Michigan are going to support this or not.
I come from a church group in Ann Arbor that's interested in racial justice, and other justices. And we might be able to do, even before this meeting, some sort of vote with the congregation to see how many would support this type of thing. Probably be easier at a later meeting than February 15th or 16th. But I presume that would be helpful.
So you're talking kind of like an informal small sample survey from your congregation?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I would argue that you'd probably want to provide some background educational material to acquaint people with the topic, because
Oh, yeah.
this is unfortunately one of those situations where if people have not been personally impacted, they tend to know very little about it and assume everything is working as it should. And we all know from our personal experience that that is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, could I speak up here for a second?
Please.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank whoever organized this and all the work that you guys are doing to help this good time bill. God bless you and thank you so much for what you're doing. I currently have a friend who's been incarcerated for 19 years. He has a 50 to 85 month sentence, and he has been sentenced 5 times to 40 to 60 years, 40 to 60 years, 30 to 50, 30 to 50, 30 to 50, 5 times in a row. And I just want to say how much this good time bill would impact him, because if this was already, going, he would already be out of prison. And I just want to add here too, that this person that I know is absolutely, actually innocent. And there is a career prosecutor that has put 1.5 years of his time pro bono into his case and literally proven his innocence. So I just want to say God bless everyone on this call who's trying to help prisoners like my friend, who has been extremely wronged in this system that we have. And I just want to ask one thing is there any way that we as individuals can help to make sure that this bill gets out of committee and gets actually, brought forward in this session? Is there something that we can do as individuals to help make that happen?
It is the voice of the people. And I think politicians are going to follow the lead of the will of the people when enough people express some concern over this and some desire to see a change over this. They're politicians. They look at numbers. They want to know how many people are in favor, how many people are opposed, and they're going to do probably what the majority wishes. And this is the only way things change, is the people speak up and say, this has to change. We've seen it. We've certainly seen it in other areas. So I do believe this is a battle for the changing the culture of the public and the mindset, and we have to start with education.
I agree. And I just want you to know that I've done my due diligence and called all the people that I know of that are interested in this good time bill, that have supported it in the past. And I want to encourage everyone on this call, not only themselves to call these congressmen and senators, but to encourage their loved ones and anyone else who's interested to make these calls. Because from what I'm hearing as feedback from these representatives is that most of the calls that they are receiving are definitely in favor of supporting the good time bill. So our voice does matter.
Amen. Yeah, I think Temujin brings up a good point, and it's kind of a nuanced thing, but let me say it this way. We're pushing for a law to be enacted. MDOC translates that into policy. They have their policy directives, if anybody knows, and they've looked these things up. MDOC operates with their set of rules based on what the law says and how they've interpreted them. We cannot control the way MDOC is going to implement this, unfortunately. I guess the other point I was going to make is, it's true that things could get tied up in litigation. That's very true. And unfortunately, we see it all the time. If anybody follows the way ballot initiatives work, you're also seeing where the lawmakers can undermine the will of the people by doing something called adopt and amend. Now, I don't want to go down these trails right now today, but there's a lot of pitfalls, and this is no guarantee. But the best we can do with this language, we will do. If there does need to be a change, we can talk about it, but I need to understand the change is better, and whether or not we can influence the way the policy directives get implemented by MDOC, that's a whole nother ball of wax. So let's park that for a minute.
I do just want to bring up, so this has been an ongoing conversation for about almost 3 years now in terms of language and what exactly would end up in the bill or on a ballot or discussion. So we've worked with a few teams of attorneys who, some are Michigan based, some are national and international law firms. And when we created our bill, we took this bill and we gave it to Lansing and the Legislative Service Bureau. So once a bill goes into the hands of Legislative Service Bureau and the lawmakers, it kind of gets out of our control as an organization. We can't really tell the lawmakers how to change the language. They write the language so that they can implement it the way the law currently works in Michigan. And so there were some back and forths, but this is what the lawmakers in Lansing Legislative Service Bureau told us the language will be. So we know, as Jack mentioned, there may be litigations that come after the bill is introduced. That happens almost always in any piece of legislation. But we are operating under the assumption that what Lansing has given us and what this language says is the policy that can be enacted to be successful based on the way the law is currently in Michigan. There are lots of laws influencing. They brought them up already, he mentioned, but there are other things that may impact this. And so we're working through those things with the different parties, but for now, we're not going to worry about those things that may come in the future. We're going to worry right now about getting our hearing and having the bills discussed. That's our goal right now.
Yeah, and our goal is to try and get a large number of lawmakers behind this. Because again, just like I said, the voice of the people add up to what decisions the lawmakers make. The number of lawmakers that support this will add up to the decision of what does the legislature do? What does the governor do? And it, if enough lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are saying, yeah, we want to do something about this, we're trying to build consensus. We are just trying to get everybody on the same page, or as many people as possible.
I think that leads us, Jack, into like the next part of this, kind of building people's stories.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So this is, I think, a typical agenda for what we would do when we meet with a lawmaker, assuming a 30-minute meeting, which sometimes you don't always get. And so we need to be flexible and prepared to adapt when somebody says, hey, I'll give you 10 minutes. What do you got to say? And you'll get those kind of meetings, trust me. But we would like to just start with an intro, introduce everybody at the table, the lawmaker and any staff that they have in the room. We're going to give a quick, brief synopsis of the good time bill that we're asking for, and we're going to try and solicit support. Don't forget, the whole reason we're in there is we want to get a commitment from the lawmaker to say, yes, this is something I can support or co-sponsor, and then we can move into personal testimonies if there's time. The personal testimonies, or why we asked you to write a resume, was to try and help you really boil down the story of your loved one and not get off track with maybe some nuance of his particular case, but in general, how well have they done since being sentenced? We can't change the fact that your loved one is in prison right now. That happened. That's behind us. Now, how have they done with their time there? And how can you tell that story of what they've done, how they've worked on their rehabilitation, how a good time bill with the policy points that we have. By the way, we also want to make a point that this bill is trying to retroactively calculate a new early release date. So for those who have spent a long time in prison, this is focused on largely reducing these long sentences. So how do we tell that story? And if somebody's been languishing in prison for 20 years, that's even more reason why a good time bill makes sense, because if they have a 20-year sterling record of no problems. It's pretty clear anyway from my perspective, and after talking to many of those who are incarcerated, if you can do that, you're actually doing something. That is not a small accomplishment, to keep your nose clean, keep your head down, stay out of trouble, follow the rules, demonstrate that you're being compliant. Now then, at the end, we want to try and wrap up the meeting with circling back to, hey, can you support this? Or if not, or if you need more time or more information, what do you need? And when would you like to meet again? And thank you and goodbye, right? Any questions?
I do want to mention, so this is a 30-minute, there's going to be 3 or 4 people who are also telling their stories. So this 30 minutes goes by fairly quickly. There are a few meetings that may only be 20 to 15 minutes, only because lawmakers are going from one meeting to another. So this is ideal. This is how it works if everything goes smoothly, but at times things may go slightly awry. That is why, Jack, really, we want to talk about making sure you have your story and you're prepared to tell it. The other thing that will be helpful, and we'll make sure we give you guys pieces of information once we kind of are able to pair you up with who we know you're going to be visiting, is if you literally pull up a lawmaker's either Wikipedia or their campaign website and just read about them, get to know who they may be. What are they passionate about? What have they supported, or what have they worked on previously if they're a returning lawmaker? Having that information can help you be successful ahead of time so that you can make personal connections with someone about how you're similar, or maybe you both worked in a union, or you both grew up on a farm, or things like that. It can really help the conversation move forward, building those relationships.
Yeah, and I would ask, if you're in the room with me, I'm a lousy note taker and talker at the same time. So if you have the skill of taking even good mental notes, I'd ask that you keep your ears open and maybe make note of any kind of feedback, either verbal or nonverbal, that we're getting from that lawmaker. We can find time later to debrief. I'll even buy the coffee, and we can sit down and chat about what we all heard.
Hey, Jack. I'm sorry. This is Alicia. Hey, I don't know. I cut in and out, but I kind of missed. I don't know if anybody got to Diane had mentioned in the comments just about when we're talking to them, if we were going to use statistical reasoning, like doing the 30 for 30 and all that, as we've done. Where does that put us, like, in the line of compared to other states? I know I thought originally they said that we would be on the map and we would be like have the best good time, I guess, in quotes, but where would that put us in comparison to other states if we were doing 30 for 30?
So there are 7 states in the country that do a 50% reduction. They're
okay.
They're different ways. They're either like, some do a day for a day, some do 3 months, some do 6 months for 6 months, a year for a year. So there's different ways they've written it depending on the state. So there are 7 states in the country that have of 50% or more. There are some states that, based on their combination of good time and productivity credits, you could reduce your sentence a significant amount. But we, by no means would we be an outlier. We would just be in the middle.
Okay. I think that's like really great to know, because I mean, we just in saying, like, this isn't like some out of the, I know that in the past, like, speaking of for MJA, people are, especially people in Michigan, like, oh, that's never been heard of and all that. So just saying, like, we're not alone. Like, it's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, we want to be progressive, but it's not like we're asking for way too much. Like, this is already happening and working in many other states. So, okay. Thank you for that. I hope that answered.
Yeah. The other way to put it, Alicia, would be to say, hey, why is Michigan the only state in the entire country that requires someone serves 100% of their minimum time in a secure facility in prison behind bars? Why is that? Why can't we do what other states have already figured out how to do? That's another way to spin it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack and Mariah. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
I wonder,
go ahead, Roberta.
I was just going to say, I just wonder if I could jump back in here. First of all, I want to thank you so much for the tips that you gave about, getting to know these, congressmen, senators, whichever we'll be meeting with. Thank you. That's a very good idea. I just wanted to say that, is there, like I say, is there some sort of a way that we can, how can I say it? Use this time in the best possible way? Is there a way that we can like maybe send something ahead of time that they could, research? Because in my friend's case, his case is massive. And I'm just not even sure, to be honest with you, how to, boil it down to these, particular issues. And also, by the way, one more thing, I wanted to reiterate also what Ken Sue said. I agree with him in the sense that if there is a way to change the wording so that there, would be, it would eliminate the possibilities of litigation in the future, I'm really pretty sure that most of the senators and the representatives would be very open to hearing about any of those changes that might make it so that there wouldn't be so much litigation later on, as long as it could, still flow in with the MDOC policy and things like that. I think it would be a really good idea to catch the problems up front. And I agree with Ken Sue on that. And I'm hoping that maybe that can be just maybe reworded a little bit to eliminate any possibilities of a whole bunch of litigation down the road.
I'd love to. The problem is that, go ahead, Mary.
Well, I was going to go to our first point, to Roberta's first point, and since you've got the strategies for the meeting up, one thing I want to clarify: when we meet with lawmakers, we want your story and your loved one's story to be a part of the narrative, but this is not a time to advocate for any one individual case. So we have to be efficient with our time. And so one of the strategies that we have this go around is we're really trying to show that returning people home and will help Michigan, will help their economy, the economy, your community, and your family, and kind of have a focus on, with that person being incarcerated, what is missing, that what gap could they be filling? So we're looking at part of this is an economic standpoint, because that reaches a lot of lawmakers more than the personal stories. We want a balance of personal stories, but also what's the benefit to society if this person were returning home? And that's why we're looking at one of two documents that we think you should take with you and that we would like to help you prepare.
Yeah,
that
can you
either
go to that next page so she can show?
Was the next one? Yeah. So either a resume or a narrative that talks about what in terms of, you think about a resume and it shows like, here's what this person was doing before they were incarcerated. They had jobs, they were contributing to society. What skills did they have? And if they were back in the workforce, where would they be filling gaps? Because we know that there are a lot of gaps in employment right now in Michigan. There's a lot of jobs that are unfilled at the moment. So that's an economic way to kind of sell this to your more conservative congresspeople who may really not be interested in the human aspect so much as, how does this help Michigan? How does it help the economy? And jobs is a big part of that. The alternative version would be kind of a narrative. And one thing I would say about these, when we talk or you write a narrative, is to avoid talking about how unfair the system is, because generally speaking, we've all known people who have been treated unjustly by the system. We get that. But if everything seems like a complaint, then that my loved one was treated unfairly, then that kind of shuts people down, because these are people who are elected, and elected officials have to they have to balance between all of the viewpoints of their constituents. And we know that a lot of people who have not been touched by the justice system don't realize that it's chock full of inequities and so we want that balance. So you want to present a case of why would it be better for your loved one to be home, and not dig deep into the legal aspects that lawmaker can't fix the court system right now. They can't fix. All we're asking them for is to do this good time thing. That's our focus, because that's one thing that they can do. They can support and vote on this legislation and all of this other stuff. I mean, they know that, I'll tell you something, if you want to talk about complaining about the facilities, the lawmakers know that there's a lot of problems with the DOC facilities. They already know that. Going into those weeds are not going to help our case with good times so much. And I'll
Can I
out
respond
there,
to you just
jump
real
in.
quick, if you don't mind? I just want to respond to that. And I want to say, I know my friend, and I know like Ken Sue, and I know many, many other guys that knew nothing about the law before they went to prison. And they are so adamant about getting themselves into a better position that they learn the law while they're in prison. And I've said to this attorney that's helped my friend many times, I said, you know, if they would allow my friend to be out, he could be of such benefit. And I know Ken Sue could be, and a lot of other guys who have devoted their lives while they're in prison to improving themselves, to improving and getting to know. Some of these guys know the law better than lawyers do. So
Absolutely. And that can be part of the resume, the training that they've done, the jobs that they've held, all of that can be on that resume, or the narrative of this is what I've been doing while I've been incarcerated. Here are all the opportunities I've taken advantage of. And in a narrative, talk about when I get out, I want to do this kind of work. I want to be a volunteer. I want to do all of that.
this is one of the things that I've offered. As a matter of fact, my friend's currently involved in the CIU unit at the Attorney General's office. He's waiting for a response from them. And I said, you know, my friend has learned so much law that if he were to be able to get out, he could aid in ways, you know, like organizations like the CIU unit, because he has such, not only does he have, you know, knowledge about the law now, but he has a real big, you know, knowledge of how the prison system itself works from the inside out. So I think those guys that have learned the law in the law library and use their time efficiently could be a huge help to society if they were allowed to be using that knowledge when they get out.
Yeah, these are the points we want to make. What has this person done with their time while incarcerated to improve themselves, to turn themselves around, to demonstrate rehabilitation? Because this policy is meant to reward and incentivize those who are trying to change their lives. So the story has to probably include, hey, when they got there, they weren't really doing much. And as they learned, this is how they changed. This is the way they're improving. Now this is the way they're thinking, and they want to get back and try and contribute to society. I think that's a great story to tell. It's a great story to tell. Do we have some examples? Let's see. Because I asked for some example resumes from people, and these are kind of traditional looking templates, right? Experience and education, usually dates and times. What sort of accomplishments did they do while they were sentencing, by the way, pre-incarceration? What was their background? Then once they found themselves incarcerated, what have they done inside? What's their institutional record look like? And I just want to show you one that I was just so impressed with. This fella wrote me in such clear, organized thought. This is very straightforward. Now, the purpose of all of this is for you to be able to tell their story. So if one of these formats works better for you than another, by all means use it. If you tried to read through this list of accomplishments, I think you wouldn't have enough time, and I don't know that you would keep the attention of those you were talking to. But this to me was amazing that somebody has organized it. And the point I would make looking at all of this is if you start to look at their behaviors and this misconduct summary on the far right, you notice that things start to taper off. And for the last 8 years, there's nothing, right? The one before that from 2008. So it demonstrates rehabilitation. If the Department of Corrections wants people to be rehabilitated so that when they return, there's a lower chance of recidivism, this is the way to talk about it and demonstrate it. But this isn't the only way. You're going to tell these stories in your own voice the best you can. The purpose of this was to give you structure and guidance so that when you're in there sitting in that room, you kind of stay on track. You don't get lost. Don't go off in the weeds. try and talk about how they've changed. Thoughts, questions?
I just have one. I know we want to kind of keep it not negative about what's broken with the system. But in my daughter's case, when she had gotten there, she was 17 years old when the accident happened. 19 is when she was sentenced. And she got her GED 6 months after being in there. She's always, before being in it, she has always wanted to better her career and everything. So when she got placed in there, she recognized, yes, I want to go in. I want to get my GED. I want to further my education. She was able to get that done, but she has been at a complete standstill ever since, trying to get into like a work program or trying to get into the college program that they offer. She's put many kites in. She's not getting any responses through. So if anything, I know we want to rehabilitate, but it also doesn't seem like rehabilitation is a key point for everybody there. Is that something that we want to bring up as well? That it's not beneficial for her being there because she's not getting the advancement that she's trying to get.
Hello?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I make a comment on that, please?
Yeah, Mark.
I think that's an excellent, true point, but just my opinion at this stage, approaching the lawmakers, wanting them to have, see a positive benefit to the proposed legislation. There's so many other things that need to be fixed too, but I guess I think we should keep it simple. And I do want to talk about those issues that this lady just mentioned, because it's the same, we're finding the same thing with my son. Despite his desires, he's not having an opportunity to take advantage of some of the programs you read about online or what is supposedly available in the prison. But that's separate from good time off. So I'm just thinking we should be positive and keep it simple. And then maybe, have another workshop or subcommittee or something on issues like that. One question that ties into the good time off legislation related to this that I have is, you said like 30 days earned for 30 days good behavior. Are there additional benefits or additional time off earned if you don't simply stay out of trouble, but you actually complete a education course, or you complete a counseling, or you complete
Yeah, so those are referred to as productivity credits. This bill does not include anything tied to specific behaviors or actionable items because of the limitations that Charlie just mentioned. However, if those bills are introduced again, which have been introduced previously, they would work in conjunction. So someone could earn both their good time off and their productivity credits at the same time, to continue to build on that. Both sets are written in such a way that someone would have to serve a minimum, I believe it's written as 50% of their minimum sentence before they'd be eligible for release. That's in line with the rest of the country. So going back to what Alicia asked earlier, the language written is very in line with what other states and the federal level do, because we really wanted to reflect that. We're not asking for something crazy in left field. We're taking us Michigan in line to where the rest of the country is. So you could earn both, but we know the limitations of the current Department of Corrections based on a fact of the matter is the GED has about 3,000 slots and there are 13,000 people on the wait list for it. And so that limitation alone is a reason why we're not a huge fan of productivity, but we are a fan of good time in the sense that it's an equitable policy that anyone would be eligible for.
And it's still an incentive. It's still an incentive the
Yes.
good behavior, forgetting about productivity credits, there's still an incentive for inmates to behave themselves, follow the rules, reduce stress for the correction officers, improve the environment, save taxpayer money,
All
etc.
those good things. Yep.
And
Okay,
one thing I want to
okay.
add, in terms of how this does align with the fact that there are not enough slots for all the programming. And one of our speakers that will be talking at the Lunch and Learn will be from LEO, and I always forget exactly what this stands for. Labor economic opportunity, I think, labor and economic opportunity. And so, if good time existed and people could get out sooner, then there are programs like the Michigan Reconnect, that would fund people to go back to college if they don't have a degree already, for instance. And so it's actually kind of a little bit of a benefit to say, for us to be able to say, there aren't enough spots in some of this programming, but if we can return citizens to home, they can take advantage of job training programs through workforce development, and they can get into college programs through Reconnect and start again contributing to the economy. So that is a point that can be made and supports us.
Okay,
Bonnie,
perfect. That's exactly how I was kind of looking at it, is it's not helping her benefit her life and advancing. If she could be out, she does have that mindset. She does want that. She is one person that she could do this on her own outside, where those that may need it inside opens up those slots. Exactly.
yes. Bonnie, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, thanks, Mariah. I just wanted to add, like Mark, to what you said. If they don't behave, they won't get the credit. So there is the incentive there. That's why they can lose that 30 days. But to both your points, Sally and Mark, it's about wordsmithing. So you can say, my loved one, however you want to phrase it, has taken advantage of the programs that are available. And to what Mary said, reverse that to the fact of, if more people went home on the good time status, then those classes would be available and readily available for more people inside as well. So when you're writing your template, when you're writing what you want to say, you can kind of form it around that. Think that way of, they've done everything they can. So you're showing the positive. And if we also see the positive of going home, then they could get more resources to be available. So you can look at it that way. And then one more point, that when we were talking about having this write-up, I don't think it's been mentioned that you can leave that paper with the legislator. So you can do a point where you maybe have a little bit more, or if you want to put your loved one's information on there, they can reach back out, something like that. You can incorporate that into your paper, because you can tangibly leave it with them. And lots of times we don't get to all the speakers in the room. And maybe that's a time you just say, here's my story, let me leave it with you. And they love to have that happen too. So make sure you have copies.
Yes, they do. Great point, Bonnie. We would love you to have multiple copies of your story, however you choose to write it, in a narrative form or a resume form for your loved one, because they can't process everything in 30 minutes. So they do take them home and they read them later on. Their staffers will read the story, and oftentimes they have followed up and asked more questions for individual cases if there's a huge personal connection that they feel for something. But that's great. Anne, I see you. Annie, you have your hand raised.
Yes. So I don't have a loved one or a story that way. I'm a community member. But one of the things I wanted to mention is it's been on the news, I don't know for how long at this point, maybe 6 months or longer, about the staffing shortage. And really, if this good time bill could go into place, it could help with staffing, right? Because they wouldn't need as many staff, and also help reduce the stress, which I know was mentioned here. And listening to the stories, I just think this is a great, I guess I'll call it a marriage, bringing together the economic impact, including having more people available in the community to work, because, our small businesses are suffering so much. And then just the stress that is on these correction workers. If there was a motivation for good time, that would help their jobs as well.
Absolutely. And that is definitely points that we like to bring up. So thank you for bringing that up. I do, Jack, want to be respectful. It is 3:00. I know some people may still have questions, but kind of next steps. Next, is it Monday evening, Jack? Or I believe it's next Monday evening. We're going to do a 30-minute call for everyone who's been on this meeting and who was on our previous meeting to confirm availability for dates and times of meetings. Jessica, our vice president, is still working on meetings. Like we said, we have a number in place, but our main day right now is February 16th. The Thursday, we have meetings from 9 a.m. all the way to 3:30 currently scheduled. We also have a set of meetings for February 15th, again, from, it looks like 9:30 is the earliest, going till 4 o'clock right now. So we have quite a few meetings on the schedule that we are still packing in. So we are going to touch base that next Monday. We would ask that you have either a letter or a resume or some narrative prior to that day so that we can talk through who has what and kind of pair stories and individuals together so that lawmakers can have a range. If you are not able to join us for either of those days, either the 15th or the 16th, that's okay. We are going to do another set of legislative visits in March and then probably another set in April. So I know people have work schedules and life things. That's okay. We will get those dates in March and April as we get closer, but that is our plan right now. So since you are here today, we will make sure to send that to you for next Monday evening. I don't have the time yet, but I will pull that, but it'll be a quick 30-minute touch base to fill in the schedule for people who are available. Happy?
I'm wondering, so you're going to match us to representatives that you schedule, not necessarily our representative, is that right?
Correct. So if we have your representative and you're available to come, we will definitely match you together. But we unfortunately don't have meetings with 100 representatives and 30-something senators, so we can't necessarily match everyone with their rep or senator based on what we.
How do I know that you have my name and phone number that I'm interested?
Yeah, you, so if you registered for this Zoom, we have everyone's name, email.
Okay.
I believe 90% of you also are in our newsletter database, so we can match with you there, and we'll be able to give you more information from there. But everybody who is here today, we have that information because you registered and showed up to the Zoom.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
Yeah, I know we're going to have such a short time when we're meeting with the lawmakers, but one of my things that I want to talk about is, I don't know if a lot of you's been around as long as I have, but I'm retired after 30 years, on the railroad. And back years ago when I was a young kid, my brother-in-law got me a job there, and he had been in prison for 10 years. And I think that's like a big topic. I think the lawmakers need to find a change so some of these, when some of these get out of prison, that they can get a decent, good job, that a union job. And I mean, I worked on government property and things as it's changed throughout the years, and then people that had felonies or anything. So this is something I think it's a big, something we need to let the lawmakers, know.
So we actually are going to be doing a lunch and learn education on the 16th for the lawmakers. That's why we're planning to be in Lansing that day. They will actually be talking directly to that topic about returning citizens, employment, and workforce opportunities, limitations that exist, and things that we can do to maybe limit some of those limitations so people can get good jobs and be successful. So that's something we're definitely going to be talking about. And if you're there on the 16th, you could definitely come to that educational opportunity that we have for lawmakers on the 16th. I see I have one more phrase. Karen, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So you had asked for either the letter, the narrative, the resume from us in advance. When would you like it and who should we send it to?
Yep, you can email it to the contact email. So contact@mijustice.org, and we'll drop that down. Courtney already put it in the chat for us. And as long as we have it that Monday when we're going into the meetings, or you can even bring it Monday with you just to make sure you have it. We just want to make sure people are prepared and ready to come, and not just winging it and showing up in Lansing and trying to like take over everything. We want people to be really organized. So if you can send it by Monday, or at the very latest have it in the meeting on Monday evening, that's all we request.
I'm sorry, I don't even know how to raise my hand, but I was wondering if I could jump in here with just one comment on the stuff about that. Basically, I figure if people could get out of prison sooner, wouldn't that make more money for these programs such as GED and any kind of maybe trades? I know I lived in California for 22 years, and the prisons out there actually offer trade schools inside of the prisons. So that, they said, these people said there's no opportunities. Well, that's what I'm thinking is if there was less prisoners, there would be more money to hire GED teachers. There would be more money to hire trades, school trades people. I've been suggesting that to the MDOC for years, that to train these people, we have such a need for tradesmen out in our society now, that if we could set up some kind of a reward system so that these guys could actually learn a trade while they're in prison, so that when they come out, they could earn a decent living. And just wanted to say that's another way that we could approach the lawmakers in saying, look, this money saving is going to actually, kind of keep perpetuating itself, because the more money we save, the more teachers we can hire. Then that, you know what I'm saying? And more.
Absolutely. Yep. Those are, we'll have a one pager actually for everyone to see, but there is a discussion about the cost of incarceration and those benefits that money could be used for. Roberta, is a conversation we bring up with lawmakers. I do see Victoria, you have your hand raised and you've been patient. Is there a question we can answer for you? Victoria? All right, I guess if there is any other questions, I know we have a few more people. Otherwise, we will make sure to send this out and we'll send a follow-up email out to everyone from here. But we really appreciate your time today, everybody. I know there was a lot of information and questions, but the voices that we are hearing here are so amazing, and we appreciate all of these voices being lifted together in common for good time. And we are really looking forward to going to Lansing and bringing these voices with us to the lawmakers so that they understand it's not just a few crazy MJA people. There are hundreds of people across the state that support good time. So thank you.
Thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you.
Okay, folks, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. This recording will be available in the next couple of days. Thank you all for your time and have a blessed rest of the day.
You too.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.